What's up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus again with MetalTrenches.com, and today we are ranking the albums of Between the Buried and Me. And hey, if you like to be kept up to date with the best and brightest metal bands and albums from the underground and above, then stick with me by hitting that subscribe button down below. Alright, that's right, we are redoing it since Colors 2 is dropping, and I am so excited to talk about these albums yet again. I've talked about them before, and I will talk about them a million times because I absolutely love this band. But let's dive right into it. With Between the Buried and Me, they're self-titled in 2002. This is an album that I don't really re-listen to a lot besides when I'm, doing this list, basically. It's fine. It's an okay debut, but if we're being real here and before people get mad, because there's always those stands for, certain albums, especially debuts, but if we're being real, this is a band that has progressed so far beyond what they did on this album, and so something needs to be down lower, and so I'm going to go ahead and put it at C tier. Alright, but now let me get my headphones on for these ones, because we're diving into the stuff that I really enjoy, and of course this is always just, my own subjective opinion. No need to get mad. I will love to hear down in the comments how people rank them differently, and they always do, but let's move on to the Silent Circus in 2003. This was my introduction to the band. I will always remember the day that I was in the CD store and I was just kind of perusing a lot of different, particularly mathcore and metalcore stuff, and I saw the album on the shelf and I thought I'd give it a go, and man did it blow me away right from the beginning with Lost Perfection. Holy cow, this intro, this slow build up with the eerie sound, and I remember just being like, what's happening? What's going on here? Let me get that drop. Just pure death metal. This is easily that part right there too with the high vocals. This just blended my brain, basically. I could not get enough of that, and I say that this album was sort of my gateway into a lot of more weird and kind of technical and intense kind of music that I otherwise might not have had the stomach for, and I think I was more perplexed by it than anything at first, but I just kept coming back to it. It's this morbid sheer curiosity kept me coming back, and then lots of other great songs on here. I love the bass tone on here too. It just pummels you. But yeah, Anabilophobia, lots of weird things to pronounce on here. Camilla Rhodes, we got a great reference to one of my all-time favorite movies in Mulholland Drive. Mordecai, that intro with the drum. Another just pure rager death metal track. So heavy. And then Added Deguglement, however you want to pronounce that. Just insanely memorable, insanely intense, great stuff. I adore this album. I know a lot of people tend to kind of rank it lower, but I feel like it's underrated, quite honestly. And it's partially, I know a lot of us have that first album bias when it comes to bands that we got into. And I'll say that could be the case, but I'm going to put this one at A tier. I still love it to death. Is it as consistent as some of their later albums? Not really, but it just packs such a punch, and I have so much nostalgia attached to it too. But also, I love me some super heavy shit, and if you want that, that's the album to go with. But enough about that. Let's go on to 2005 with Alaska. And this was an interesting one for me in terms of trajectory. So I was super hyped for this, seeing all of the ads on Headbangers Ball and music video stations and stuff in college, and I was super stoked about it. And it came out, and I didn't really like it. I kind of disliked it for a long time, partially because I think I just loved how heavy the Silent Circus is, and Alaska just isn't as heavy. They're going much more towards the progressive elements. It's still super heavy, though. It's definitely still one of their more kind of mathcore albums. They haven't gone full prog yet. But over the years, man, have I fallen in love with this album. All Bodies, great album opener. And it's still heavy. I don't know what was wrong with me, honestly. It was just an adjustment period, I guess. And all these great transitions, so many memorable moments. Throwing in these big, here's where those big, epic melodies that they've become known for really kick off. Oh, and that transition too. There's so many of those on here. We'd be here all day if I really highlighted all of them. But sing-along moments too with the clean vocals. The title track is amazing. Just that dizzying, like, neoclassical guitar work. And that pace change there. It's changing in the time signatures and everything. Selkie's The Endless Obsession. There's this cool, like, spacier intro. That more kind of, like, cyclical... Like, I just picture the notes, like, swirling around me. More instrumental elements on this one, too. Then you got Roboturner, which I did love from the very beginning, because, again, I wanted me some heavy shit, and this is, like, the heaviest song on the album. This is, like, basically just, like, a tech death song, with even a little, like, thrash thrown in for good measure. Great track. Autodidact, too, another personal favorite. I don't know what was wrong with me. So, as far as this album goes, it has over the years become one of my favorites, even more so than the Silent Circus. Like, you take the Silent Circus, you make it more consistent, more concise, you get more mature with the songwriting, let it flow, get those progressive elements going, and you have yourself an S-tier album, for sure. Let's go to 2006. We have The Anatomy of, which is their covers album. I don't even really consider this a part of their sort of full discography, and I don't keep it in my collection. I've heard it a number of times. I'm not a huge fan. I like covers when they're done really well, but I will even say, like, I just feel like this was kind of a misstep. I was really underwhelmed by it. I'm going to actually put it at D tier, but never fear, that is I'll spoil this. That is the only album that I'm going to put there. And it's not really terrible, but it's definitely like my least favorite out of everything. But bouncing back from that, we've got a big one with 2007's Colors, the original. And boy, this album, unlike Alaska, blew me away immediately. I remember listening to this one. This was also college, and there was a big lead up to this one. And I didn't have as much hype this time, just because, again, at the time, I was sort of let down by Alaska, because I'm a fucking moron, I guess. But this one came out, I got it, and I remember I went to the gym across the street from the dorms, and I played this while I was on the treadmill. And just, like, from these first haunting notes of the backtrack, just like setting up like a musical, basically. It's so atmospheric, and I was like, whoa, where are we going with this? And then we kick over into the decade of statues, still keeping it heavy. There are some great, like, intense moments on here that I honestly forget about, because I think of this as such a progressive and, like, moody and melodic album, but it's got its share of bangers, too. Just so many head-bobbing moments, and then the great transitions again into these kind of more psychedelic portions. Informal Gluttony, I absolutely love. You got this big, like, this is one of their most ambitious tracks of the time, I think, where they had this whole, like, kind of Middle Eastern vibe going to it, with the chanting in the background and everything. I was on that treadmill, and I must have gone, like, 30 miles on this thing, or at least it felt that way. Really, every track on here is amazing. I really should add Ants of the Sky to my favorites too. I don't know why it's not already on there, so I might as well go ahead and do that. Let me make sure I don't go past 10 seconds here and get myself in trouble though while I'm doing that. But yeah, this is a great track. I've been re-listening to this one a lot recently, since obviously the sequel, so to speak, has come out now. This is like 5 songs in one, basically, and same goes, of course, with prequel to the sequel, which we all had fun playing the video game version of. So every note of this song is like stamped into my brain from learning how to play that on the video game controller guitar. But just a banger of a song with so many amazing hooks. And then you got this weird, like, accordion break that I was like, whoa, they are really doing some weird stuff here. And then all building up to this amazing conclusion with White Walls. This big, almost 15-minute epic. And yeah, easily S-tier album. Obviously, I would probably put it above Alaska, too. Overall, again, the mature songwriting just really coming through there. And it's just evident that they're not a band willing to set still. They just want to keep moving forwards. Now, speaking of which, let's go to The Great Misdirect in 2009. And when I did my original tier list, I kind of learned my lesson that I thought most people don't like this album. And boy, was I wrong. I got a lot of angry comments like, are you stupid? Like, no, people love this album. There are people who adore this thing. So it seems to be a little bit divisive. There are people like me who aren't really a big fan of it, and then other people who this is like their favorite. And I totally respect that. That is one of my favorite things about doing these tier lists is, again, in the comments, hearing other people's perspectives on why they love albums I don't, and why they hate albums that I think are the best. And that leads to great conversation. But yeah, not to bury the lead there, but I am not as big a fan of this album, especially coming off of Colors. It was a tall order. I had high expectations for this thing, and it's fine. It's far from a bad album. Obfuscation is cool. I do agree. We were talking in the Discord, and somebody was like, dude, that track is super overrated. And I would say it probably is. But as far as the album goes, it's one of the better ones. Lots of cool stuff going on it. I do like Fossil Genera. The fun. It's like the first appearance, really, of kind of that, like, yeah, like jazz guy, old school jazz guy persona that Tommy likes to take on certain parts of the albums. Actually, that wasn't the first appearance, because there's kind of like that Scatman moment on Colors. So I always love it when that comes out, though. It's definitely fun. And then Swim to the Moon, of course, is kind of a classic. Everybody brings this up. Almost 18-minute track. Gotta one-up White Walls from the previous album. Lots of amazing stuff going on here. Almost elements of like Mastodon in the songwriting in some ways, but a lot faster too. Really crazy stuff. So as far as it goes, though, in terms of the entire discography, where would I put this? I'm going to make a lot of people mad again. I still won't move it from that slot. Personally, for me, it's a C. This is one of my like least re-listened albums. If I'm in the mood for Between the Buried and Me, this is not an album I commonly reach for. I go back and listen to it every now and then just to make sure that my opinion hasn't changed, and so far it just really hasn't. There are parts of that album that I find actually kind of boring, kind of tedious, and that's just me, though. That's just me.
You serious?
Let's go to 2011 with the Parallax Hypersleep Dialogues EP, and this is where things start to pick back up again. I kind of like took a little bit of a break, I feel like, and came to these albums a little bit later, but great stuff. Like, I heard these and was like, whoa, okay, this is them getting back in gear for me. And again, those progressive elements just like really ramping up once again. They just keep getting better and better with the songwriting, the performances. Really every song on here is great, but the first two tracks in particular are my cup of tea. And those guitars, man, they're just like endless riffage. And the whole kind of like sci-fi conceptual element always appeals to me too. So short EP, gonna keep this one short, but I really do enjoy that one quite a bit. I'm gonna put it at A, even though again it's just an EP. But segueing straight from that into Parallax II, Future Sequence in 2012. Holy cow. This was an album, again, like, I don't think I spent a lot of time with early on for whatever reason. Like, I don't think there was a particular reason, but as you can see, like, I love so much of this thing, and really everything is great. But you've got the big atmospheric intro, which is more and more becoming kind of a thing with them, and then you've got Astral Body with another just super memorable, super hooky intro, almost like a Rush track at this point, and how it explodes into... We got the long build-up. I forget sometimes how long it takes to build up before we really get into... Where's the part I want? Where's that transition? Here we go. That just like joyous, like put a smile on your face kind of stuff coming out there. Again, all those strong neoclassical elements. You got Lay Your Ghosts to Rest. Banjo coming in. Not for the last time either. Little spoiler there, kind of. Oh, it's so good. Extremophile Elites. Again, we could be here all day if I really like pinpointed like all of the best moments on these albums, because they're just packed with them. That's what makes this band so incredible, is not only... Oh my god, Telos is so fucking heavy too. I forget sometimes. But not only do they have like the memorable, like almost like pop song moments, but they manage to weave them together in these incredibly complex compositions that are just utterly mind-blowing. Melting City is great. Silent Flight Parliament, I love this big neoclassical build-up here. This almost feels like something that would be played at like the Philharmonic or something. But holy cow. Carnegie Hall, BT Bam, needs to be there. But yeah, let's, before I just go on and on and on and make this video just last forever, which I would be perfectly happy with, but I know you all are busy people with things to do. Another S tier, and honestly, on certain days, it's my favorite BT Bam album. These three become kind of interchangeable depending on my mood and what I'm looking for, but as far as like, I feel like the pinnacle of their songwriting, this is sort of where it's at. So I will always recommend one of these three probably to a first-time listener, depending on what they're looking for. Again, if they want something a little bit crazier, a little heavier, I'll probably go with Alaska, but if they want that more kind of progressive side, then I'll go with one of these two, depending on how complex and how crazy they're looking to get. But let's move on now to Coma Ecliptic in 2015. And this is another album with a lot of mixed reactions, I feel like. And it kind of comes down to the fact that they went with a more clean approach. There's not as much in the way of harsh vocals, or at least it kind of feels that way when you're listening to it. It's more of like an opera. In fact, I call this like their Queen album. They've obviously always been influenced by Queen, but this is like their Night at the Opera, for sure. And I really love it. I think the Coma Machine is honestly one of the best songs they've ever written. And when this came out, I had so much fun just bobbing my head and grinning like a complete moron listening to this song. And you get the heavier moments. They come in. They're there. People seem to forget. Dim Ignition's fun. It's almost more of like a Daft Punk kind of like Tron sort of track. Fun to like whisper along with the dim ignition. Famine Wolf. Another moody track. Just a very big atmospheric build up, and again, there's those heavy parts. It's funny because even like after I listen to it each time, I still go back to like, oh yeah, that's the album with like all the clean vocals. It's like, no, there's a lot of heavy stuff on here still. This is a fun one too with King Redeem and Queen Serene, a little sort of two-parter with the big piano part and then getting super heavy for the second half. Oh, I love this part. Great to scream along with and just throw your horns in the air. The Ectopic Stroll, here we go. Here's the jazz man coming back. Great piano line there. Tommy just always sounds like he's having a great time during these parts. So, honestly, yeah, I really like Coma Ecliptic. I know not everybody does. I had it at B tier when I did this last time. I kind of want to bump it up to A tier a little bit, but I don't want to over bloat things, so I think I'll still put it at B tier. Just in terms of re-listenability, it's still not one of the ones that I usually go to, but I really do enjoy it every time I listen to it. Let's move on to Automata I and II in 2018, and I did group them together into one because they conceptually are part of a larger work as far as the band put it, even though they were released separately. And they're good. They're good. I was a little bit disappointed. This was another one where I didn't make that like instant connection with it, and then even listening to it over the years, there are tracks that I really enjoy and tracks that I am not quite so fond of. As far as part one, Condemned to the Gallows is great. Big build up again. Super heavy, kind of thrashy even with some of the riffs. House organ's good. Speaking of the organ, there it is. I always love when they bring the organ in, and if you enjoy that too, you're gonna like the new album. let me just sneak that little comment in there before we get to that, but we will. And then Blot, I also really like off of this part. I love this opening with that little kind of disjointed guitar part mixed in with the rumble of the bass. Just a great track overall. Probably, honestly, the best one, maybe on the entire thing. And then as far as part two goes, Voice of Trespass is easily my favorite on here, because this is the most, like, batshit weird one. Really going crazy with the whole Jazzman thing. We got the megaphone going. And just like this riff. It's like big band music. It's like you're at the club, snapping your fingers. Reminds me of the scene from The Mask with the big dance number. I love this track, and it was funny, too, because when I heard this, I'm like, I hope they completely jump the shark and just do more of that. So hold that thought while I rank this. Overall, I'd still give it about a B. I can't decide where I rank it alongside Coma Ecliptic. I think I like Coma Ecliptic a little bit more because I think it's a little bit more consistent. But there's a lot of great stuff on here. I still like it better than these bottom 3 ones, but good stuff. Let's talk about, though, Colors 2. And I don't have it in my iTunes at the time of recording. That will change real soon. I've already pre-ordered it, and I have been listening to it around the clock. It's just that it's been through a promo stream, and I'm not going to get myself in trouble showing any of that or playing any of it right now, so you'll have to wait until I do my full album review to hear even more thoughts on it. But let me just say, I fucking love this album. It is really good. Better even than I expected. And that's important too, because when you're going to call your album part 2 of one of your most lauded, loved albums of all time, you'd better deliver. And I think that they absolutely did. And again, speaking of the like jump the shark with that Jazzman stuff, holy shit, is there a lot of that on here. So if you're not into that, you might not dig it as much, but there is a lot of like crazy, wild stuff. And the songwriting is ridiculous. The performances are stellar. Start to finish, it's incredible. I'm going to go ahead and put it at A tier for now, and right at the front of A tier too. Like, it is at the top of that bracket, but let me say, like, I could see this easily moving up into S tier. The only reason I don't do that now is because these 3 still have that like nostalgia bonus, so to speak. They have that legacy extra points where they have all these memories and stuff tied to it. And so they have that longevity. And this album just hasn't had the opportunity to have that yet. But I could definitely see myself a year or 2 from now easily sliding this up to the top and maybe even potentially becoming like one of my favorites because it's just that good. But again, I will have a lot more to say. I plan on doing a very in-depth review on this that, depending on when you're watching this, either will be out real soon or you'll be able to watch it right here. But now it's your turn. Let me know down in the comments, how would you rank these albums? Let me know why you love the albums that maybe I don't like as much, and the albums that I do love, maybe why you don't like them and think that they should be lower. And then, of course, stick around. I got plenty more videos for you to check out on the channel. There should be a bunch popping up on screen now. And, of course, subscribe because I'm putting up new videos every single week. Also, chat with me and several other metal content creators on the Discord and support me on Patreon. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.